Hey guys, this video, probably several after this one's going to be on doing boat seat upholstery. I've never done this before. How I started off is I already have a sewing machine, and I took some old clothes and just started sewing, trying to figure out what the stitches were, how to do. I don't even know all the terms, how to load a bobbin, how to put the thread in, see if I could even sew first. But then after that, I went to Walmart and bought some cheap vinyl to see if the sewing machine would even handle sewing through the vinyl in multiple layers. So I did that, and it worked out. And then I had to figure out whether or not I could take apart the seat and what it looked like once I did take it apart. And so I took one apart, and I'll show you this in a second. I took one apart and saw how it was put together and how they sewed it together and what I'd have to do to put it back together. Then after that, I took my cheap fabric vinyl that I bought, which isn't as thick really as the stuff I bought for the seats. So as I do this, it's going to be the first time that I've ever done it. And so it's going to be trial and error. But after sewing the cheap vinyl together and putting it onto the seat cushion, I did it super fast. Within a half hour, I had one already sewn together and kind of done. So I will show you that and a couple of the tools that I had to use to start off with. So this is the seat that I started with, and this is the one. So I have a deck boat, so everybody comes off the back and steps on this seat, so it gets the most wear. In fact, this is the only one I wanted to do. It not a huge issue because we use our boat a lot, and that is the one that everybody steps on, so I usually put a towel on there. But I was looking for a project. So here is what I did out of the cheap vinyl. Sorry, that's the only color they had. And I just needed to see whether the thread and the needle and the material would work in my sewing machine, because it's not a heavy-duty sewing machine, just a normal, common sewing machine, I think. And it's really old. It looks new because it never gets used, but it was really old. So I took this cushion apart, and I'll show you how to take one apart in sooner or later. I already did that one, so for today I actually want to cut this one apart, and I want to use all the pieces to make a pattern to actually try and do the my first seat. So things I'm going to do different. The reason I'm going to do all the seats are this color, this tannish gray color, I couldn't find. So what I did was I went online and started looking for vinyl, and I ordered this so I could start to thumb through and compare. And that color, which is on all my seat cushions, just the seat, not the backrest or the layout pad, that's the only one that they're on. So everything else is just blue and white. So that's what I bought. I went with blue and white, and I'm going to leave this off because I'm going to use white again, then blue, and the transition between the two, I didn't want to mix another color because everything else is white and blue. So, and a lot of the cushions they're sewn without, or not cushions, but the backrests and stuff don't have that in there. which I was going to have to buy a special foot to do this piece anyway. So for now, it's going to be white and blue. It'll make it just a tiny bit easier and less material I have to go through. So I sewed that up without having a template. I just did that by just kind of tracing the foam. So I think this one will actually be easier, having to take this apart and using all the pieces here to template on my material the exact pieces. I did that one super fast and it has wrinkles in it and imperfections, but that wasn't the point of that one. It was literally to see if I could do it. And after I was done, and it only took 30 minutes, probably less than that, I was pretty confident I could do this. So, like I said, I have never done this before, and I'm learning as I go, which means I read the instruction manual for the sewing machine on how to put bobbins in, how to put the thread through it. I just had to read it. And then I watched lots of YouTube videos, got different people's ideas and perspectives, and I'll make it my own, and we'll see how it goes, and you'll learn with me as I go through on what not to do. I'm pretty good at that, so just follow along. Okay, just a real quick one. I already got the one I'm going to work on today all apart, but because you didn't see me do that, on the bottom of my boat seats anyway, it's got this piece right here that when you open it up, they put the staples right down the middle. So it sits over your seam or your joint on the bottom, where it'll cover that all up and you can staple it all together. This is also another different piece of fabric that's breathable, so that when moisture or water gets inside your seat, it can breathe on the wood part. And then underneath the vinyl was plastic, just real thin plastic. It's not even very strong, but so that was under the vinyl. So literally I use painter's tool because it's got all the different options on it. It's got a point, it's got a side. It's kind of semi-sharp, so I can get in and pry this up. This one actually had a hinge right here. That's what the little holes are. So just pry this up. See, the staples are still in it. So let's see. So my boat's probably, I can't even remember what year it is. It's 14 years old. And this will be the first time that these seats have been done. And it's outside. It lives outside, but it's always under, it's got a boat cover on it. It's always on it. And even when we go on vacation, I always put the cover on at night. Helps keep the sun off of it. And then, we don't live on a lake or anything, so it's not used that awfully much. So right now I'm just taking this off. All the staples are still in there. I was going to reuse this, but it's not very expensive, so I ordered some on Amazon. I'll put links below to the stuff I got on Amazon and where I found the vinyl. Right now I can't remember the name of this stuff. So, like anything, the professionals, this is just a do-it-yourselfer that I wanted to pay to have it done, but the guy couldn't get to it because I wanted some custom stuff on my boat cover done. And, for one, it's really expensive, but there's not, that skill is, there's not a lot of them. So, he wasn't going to be able to get to it for a really long time, and I had to winterize it and get it put away, and I didn't want to go back and forth and have it out at his shop all exposed. So I was like, it'd be a good winter project, and I'll try it. So now I use the point on this thing, get it under the screw or under the staple, just peel it up, get them up. So there's not a lot in this piece, there's a lot in the vinyl underneath. And then these needle nose, just pull them out. I'm doing this on my carpet, so I got to pay attention to where all these go. Or myself or my kid will find them in our feet, so that you don't have to watch me do all this. So now I peel it back. There are a lot of staples in here. Let me move the camera so you can see it. But literally, this is just time consuming. So now we're down. This is the cover. And got just lots of staples. So I'm using this as a pattern. So I'll get them all out and peel them up nicely. But they're kind of old and brittle. They don't come up too hard. Let's see. This time I actually go under a little bit and the fabric starts to, the fabric starts to help pull them up. Again, I'm doing it on my carpet, so I have to pay attention to where all my staples go. But, so not too hard. So you do all that and you get your piece down to what's left. So this is what I'm going to start on next. What I'm going to start off with is I'm going to label my piece. I'm going to put lines on here as reference points of where each piece lines up with the next. So I'll just start with A. I'll write it in a few places. So A, B, C, and C will be blue. I probably didn't need to write that. And D, so my pieces are labeled. What I'm going to do next is, especially around this area where the seams are sewn together, I'm just going to put little reference marks, just 2 lines where they have to line up. Do this in a few spots also. That way, when I go to put them back together, I can line everything back up. So I just put, I'm using a Sharpie, just put a couple lines. A goes to B, B goes to C, C goes to D, and this piece in the middle is kind of cool. I didn't expect this, but this is sewn in here all together. And then this is actually stapled down where this transition is, and it keeps this all in the right shape. So there's foam, that's stapled down, this is stapled down, and then there's foam again, and then all the foam's wrapped in plastic. So after I go through and get enough marks on here that I'm happy with how this is laid out, I'll start cutting it apart. Okay, one last look. So before I even start cutting it apart, I labeled it out. I put little marks all over so I know where to line them up. I didn't do this flat piece because it doesn't really matter. It'll just go on after everything is pretty much done, so I had to split it apart so I could mark both sides. So when I cut this all apart, I'll put those same little tick marks on the other one, and hopefully it just goes together like that. Hopefully. But we know it won't. Alright, time to dig into this. So I bought this little tool. I don't know what it's called. Stitch removal tool. I do construction. I would call it the sewing sawzall. Fix your mistakes, but that's all it is. I think it was like $2 at Walmart. I'm sure by the time I'm done with this project, there's a little blade in there, or it's kind of sharp. This thing won't be worth a darn. But anyway, so now just cut it apart and dig in. I guess. Oh, there we go. To the side where I can see all the stitching right here, right there. So just get it in there, because there's like felt on the other side, and this stuff's nylon. I don't think you have to do every one, you just get enough to it's actually not too hard. I'm trying to do it so you can see, but it should start to open up. Get enough of them. I think if I peel enough of them up, probably gonna stab myself. I keep trying to look at the camera to see if I have it in front of you guys. Okay, open up. There we go. Alright, now I think I can start to pop this a lot easier. Well, maybe not. Alright, so that's what we're doing. These are going to be my new patterns, so you don't want to cut it any different than it is. So I will continue to just go through and, you know, pop this stuff out. So it starts to move right along. But I don't want to tear up my piece. I don't want to stab myself, because I want this whole thing. So this is technically probably, I think it's a 1/2 inch. So it looks like it's 3/8. I'm sure it'd be a 1/2 inch. I think it varies. They're probably trying to hit the 1/2 inch mark, because on my sewing machine I have these little lines, and most of this that I measured was a 1/2 inch. So when I practice everything, yeah, so it's really close to a 1/2 inch. Human error probably. I swear 1/2 inch is probably the benchmark for this. So I'm going to cut this apart into my pattern pieces.